Good morning and welcome on a really chilly live safari. It is 16 degrees Celsius, about 60 Fahrenheit, although it really doesn't feel like that. We've got an incredible cloud bank above us. It is freezing. We've got a little bit of drizzle this morning, so hopefully the rain stays away. For those of you who are regular viewers, welcome, welcome, welcome. Always great to have you on the back of the vehicle. For you, if you're new, you are live watching me freeze while trying to find wild animals in Wium and Arathusa Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands of South Africa. Also, we are interactive, so you can ask us questions about what we're seeing in the bush and everything that's going on. And my name is Brent, and I'm going to be your guide on this vehicle. We have Jeandre on camera, and we have Scott and Wium on the other vehicle, and we have Tara and Nikki in final control, and Eugene running around with his broom swatting gremlins. So hopefully the rain stays away. We are going back into the last position where I saw Sindile. Sindile is a young male leopard, just under a year old, and we're going to go see, hopefully he hasn't moved too far overnight, and check what's happening in this area. It has been so cold and dark this morning, I've been driving around with a spotlight during the daytime. Isn't that ridiculous? But we're going to continue on now, and hopefully we have some luck. We had such a fantastic last hour or so with Sindile, that young male leopard last night, chasing testiculars. And the chances of him catching one were very slim, but he provided great entertainment up and down and running and trying to climb near impossible trees to climb for a bird that's this big. Who knows, maybe his mom has returned to fetch him and she's made a kill somewhere. A dark, windy night like we had last night. Really, really good for hunting for leopards and lions. Obviously, no ambient light and chuck in a gusting wind makes it very difficult for some of the prey species to avoid being eaten. And you'll notice if this wind persists this morning, a lot of the things that are normally quite relaxed, like impala and kudu and zebra, will be a little bit jumpy. I'm crossing to channel 5. So I'm just going to be on the Game Drive radio for a minute or two, trying to figure out the updates from Arathusa. So the last place we saw Sindile was actually on the boundary between Wium and Arathusa. Morning stations, Brent from WildEarth. We're crossing west, following up on Shadows Montan around Triple M Gowrie Main Junction. Copy, thanks Sid. Last position, he crossed to the west, probably about 100 meters to the north of the signboards. Morning, Doug. How are you?
How are you, Rick?
Good, thanks. Where are you off to in such a hurry?
Yari Baba on Jeandre.
Enjoy?
Yeah, you too, guys. Good luck.
Thanks. Okay, so the last place we saw Sindile is he crossed this road just after we went off air last night and went into We are interactive, so apart from only being live, you can ask us questions about what we're doing and what we're seeing. And you can do that by emailing us on the email address questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter. So while we continue to search for this young male leopard, we're going to cross across to Scotty, see what he's been up to, and so he can wish you a merry morning.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a windy and cloudy Sabi Sands. I'm sure Brent has already informed you of this, and even that there have been a few spots of drizzle, a few very light raindrops. Thankfully, they were very light and have not caused us to seek shelter anywhere. What a beautiful, big wilderness we get to explore every day, and this is just a small little piece of it. We are currently heading east down Buffalo's Hook Cut Line, checking our northern boundary, and my name is Scott. Good to have you with us on safari this morning, and Wium is on camera with me. Nikki will be directing the show, as I'm sure Brent said, and Tara lending her a hand. We have been checking our northern boundary from our western side of our property in the hope that any lion tracks may be coming south into Djuma. There were reports of the Nkahuma pride of lions basically on the left-hand side of this road last night to the north of us, and they were seen again unsuccessfully attempting to hunt buffalo, and nobody's found any tracks of them yet this morning, but there is a chance we could find their tracks coming back, and there are a lot of other vehicles out exploring both to our left and to our right. So I'm feeling confident that it won't be long until some tracks or animals are found and things start heating up, literally as well as in terms of the sightings. And Brent, as you'll know, is across on Arethusa. I am a little bit jealous. I'm becoming very fond of this young male leopard, Sindile, and it sounded like Brent had an incredible sighting last night, watching him hunt just about anything that moved in front of him. So I'm glad you all got to enjoy that, those of you who were on the Sunset Safari. For those of you who were not on the Sunset Safari, as I said, Brent did spend a lot of time with us. We spent the initial kind of hour and a half of the safari following Tingana, a large male leopard who we saw further to the furthest eastern point we've ever seen him. It's not to say he hasn't moved that far east into Djuma before, but it's the first time we've seen him there. And interestingly, all the guides that actually found him initially just assumed that he was Mvula, the regular dominant male for that area. And that was a little bit of a mistake, and I also fell into that trap, so I'm one of them, because we simply assumed it was Mvula because it was in Mvula's territory. But Tingana is now forcing Mvula, and we could get some interaction if we are in the right place at the right time. Who knows, possibly the two of them today are in close quarters with one another, and they will be having some arguments and altercations going forward. So that's a really exciting prospect, and it's been interesting to watch the dynamics change and territories change. Thanks, Wium, for checking down that road. That kind of takes you down towards Kuyatela Dam. Signal issues here. now that we've climbed a little bit higher up out of that dip, it should be much better. So you didn't miss anything there. Now, the tricky thing that we faced this morning is that because it is overcast, we're getting no tracks, or it's not easy to see tracks without the sunlight being cast from a low angle on them. So I'm trying to use the headlights to help me a little bit to make sure I don't miss anything. You don't want to be the guy that drives down a road that a whole pride of lion have crossed over and not alert people. And everyone knows that I'm driving this route this morning because we communicate and tell one another what routes we do. Not every single move, but people will know that I'm driving this road. So if we do miss any tracks, I will be dragged over the coals by the other guides. Now, windy conditions like we're experiencing today, combined with overcast conditions, can sometimes lead to it being difficult to find the animals. I don't know where they go and hide, but it can make for tough mornings in terms of finding the animals. But then, on the flip side, some of my most memorable sightings in weather conditions like this. So if you do manage, you can get spoiled with great sightings. It's nice cool weather for predators to move in, and the wind will certainly aid them in their hunting. If it was a dead still day, whatever they try and creep up to, we'll be able to hear them coming and also more easily be able to see them. Whereas if the wind's blowing and the grass is both moving and making a noise, the approach of a predator will become a lot more difficult to detect. Well, Brent must feel that he's getting close to Sandila, this young male leopard that he's busy trying to track down, and he's actually just got off the vehicle to explore on foot. And it can be very useful to be off the vehicle exploring on foot, provided you know what you're doing. You can cover ground more easily. That's thicker than obviously traveling down the road, so it's more easy than taking a vehicle off-road. Your senses become more heightened as soon as you step off the vehicle, and your hearing and sight will really prick up because of the potential dangers and excitement. So that heightened sense of awareness that he will now be feeling as he stalks through the bush, looking for the sign of Sandile, is really a magical feeling. And I can't stress enough, if you ever do come out on safari, to try and sign up for even a short walk, even if it's just for half an hour, just to go and explore Africa on foot. It really does get the heart racing. And that's what Brent's up to. So he's obviously got to a point where he feels confident that he's getting close, and now it's time to start fine combing. The road we've just turned off onto now will lead us down to the Buffels Hook waterhole, and we'll be there in just a minute. So I'm not expecting too much action there. Hopefully we will be pleasantly surprised, but it's not quite warm enough yet for animals to be coming down to drink. But the wonderful thing about being out here is we simply don't know what will happen. Even though there are kind of likely scenarios that may unfold due to weather and the time of day at any given point in the reserve, like the waterholes, for example, the animals do not follow a life of routine, and that is why they can often pleasantly surprise us with where we find them and what we see them doing. For those of you who were on yesterday's sunset safari, when we were following Tingana, we had to cross through quite a narrow but steep little riverbed. And while we were doing so, sadly, Brian, due to my driving, bumped his head on the antenna that sends you the broadcast. So he's okay, and a lot of you are wondering if he is still okay. He's probably just not as bright and sharp as he used to be, but he can still walk around, and he can still operate, and he just has a little bit of a lump on his head. So he's okay, and he's actually got the morning off. He's resting, and he's absolutely okay. I just got a little bit of a fright when I turned around to check if everything was okay, and I saw him clutching his head. I didn't actually know what had hit him or what had happened. I just knew that we needed to give him some time not to focus on being on camera. And it was actually quite a tough one, because as soon as you cut across back to Brent's, I was forced with obviously my concern for Brian, but I was also simultaneously concerned with the leopard that was continuing to disappear into some thick bush. But thankfully he said, no, we must carry on, and you just needed some time to regroup, but he thankfully did. So just carry on, stay with the leopard, and that shows how committed he is to the show. Now, at first glance, as expected, the Buffelshoek waterhole appears to have no visitors yet. That could, and I'm almost certain, will change during the day. But there is one animal that's hiding on the far bank. So Wium can take you for a closer look. It's not going to be a great visual, but right on the water's edge, you'll see a little white dot, and that is part of an Egyptian goose. And interestingly, it's on its own. Usually you see them in... Oh, no, it's not. Sorry. There we go. I am still waking up this morning. Thank you, Wium. Wium actually, as you can see, spotted both of them, and that's why he's got them both perfectly framed. I was so focused on the one on the left that I didn't even realize there was also one on the right. So there we go. They are in their usual pair, and they are taking a slow start to the morning. Oh, guess what, Wium? Now, we just got a interesting scenario here. We need to take a closer look around. I've heard some noises, and I think there could be something up ahead of us. Somewhere in this bush, if you just help me, I'm not sure what it is that I heard, but I did hear something. Could have almost been like a growl, something a bit cat-like. Maybe Wium spotted something there.
No, God, can you see something?
No, I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on. Oh, there we go. What's that? Well, we were very, very wrong in our assumptions that nothing would be here. And even though you can't see it clearly, there is a lion. So let's take you a little bit closer and see which pride it is, see who else is here. We've got lucky, and what a pleasant surprise this is. Now, there may be a little dip in signal as we go through this little donga below us. Just going to update the game drive stations quickly. Or we'll get in there and find out who it is first. It's the Inkahuma Pride. stop here for a second, Wium, just for a nice low angle, or? We are just going to stop in this relatively awkward position to start with, because it'll give us some great low angles on the Inkohuma Pride, so take a closer look and enjoy. Inkohuma's lying up, Buffalo's Hook Dam. And it really does make such a difference being at a lower angle. That's why I thought I'd just make the most of this opportunity. Whoever would like to come to the sighting can please control standbys. I'm going to be radio down unless they move. We are on the southeastern side of the dam wall. Isn't this great? He certainly looks quite full-bellied, so they may have been successful last night, and he will be able to feed on more meat than any other members of this pride, and that's because he's bigger and stronger than the rest of them, so he can out-compete them at kills. And he's gone to join the rest of the ladies. He's a young male, and I'm glad you got to see him pacing across the screen. He's one of the sons born into this pride, so not a dominant male. And he could be expected to be kicked out by his fathers very shortly. Oh no, we just got a whiff of their dung as the wind swirled towards us. It's not very pleasant smelling, lion dung. Just got a question through from Renostas, and obviously you tuned into the fact that we had a little bit of rain or drizzle earlier, and you'd like to know if we could expect any serious rain at this time of the year. It's highly unlikely that we will get any decent rain. Our summer months provide us with the best rainfall, and we could therefore expect our next decent rains, in probably October will be the earliest we could expect decent rains, or maybe November, December and January are usually our highest rainfall months. So it's quite surprising that we've got a bit of drizzle this morning, and it's going to continue to be dry for a few more months. Well, I wonder what they managed to catch last night. Look at how relaxed all of them are. Full-bellied, cool weather. Perfect conditions for lions. Siberia Zoomy. Good to know you're watching. And they would like to know, what is the strangest animal I've ever seen an apex predator kill and feed on? Well, I'm going to have to think a little bit about lion. Nothing's popping into my filing cabinets now, or popping out of my filing cabinets now with an interesting lion kill. But I've once seen a female leopard here in the Sabi Sands eat 3 tiny newborn chicks out of a nest. They were probably only an inch or 2 long. They were tiny little chicks, and she ate them out of their nest that was kind of eye level with her, low in a tree, as if eating little sweets out of a bowl. So that was a surprise to see. Tiny little morsels that she made the most of. This pride of lion, interestingly enough, one of them killed and ate a tortoise shortly after being shown up by an unsuccessful buffalo hunt at WildEarth Dam. Some of you were there with us. Both Brent and myself were in that sighting, and a poor tortoise got caught in the crossfire afterwards. And it's important to know that predators will feed on just about anything they can overpower. So You can see them eating some very strange things. Sadly, though, I can't seem to think of anything else bizarre that I've seen lion feed on. But hopefully something will come back to me, Siberia Zumi. And that is a very content lion belly. You'll notice that the lioness don't seem to have fed on as much, and that's because he would have bullied them out of getting the easy to eat parts of the meal. Okay, folks. Well, I'm sure all of you are wondering how Brent is doing on his tracking exercise. And while these lions doze here, we'll send you across to him for a quick update.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, our endeavors in the search for Sindile have been successful. So I went around, I couldn't find any tracks of him moving too far from this area. So I went for a little walk, and I was walking probably about 4 meters from this termite mound, and I spotted him, and all he did was flatten himself against the termite mound. And when you're tracking leopard on foot, leopard rely a lot on camouflage. So you look at him, I've seen him now, and then I just kept walking past at that distance, pretending I hadn't seen him. And he did not move, and I went back and fetched Jeandre in the vehicle, and here we are with Sindile. And great, yeah, we're having a feline morning, even though the weather's a bit iffy. Oh, Jeandre, check it out quickly. Look at this, there's a really incredible little gap. Hopefully it's the sign of things to come. But there's just one patch of blue in this dark, ominous sky. And then you can see there might be a few little spots on the lens, and it is raining a little bit. We're hoping that it doesn't get much harder than this, and it stays away. So, obviously, Shadow has not returned yet. Who knows, maybe she was successful in her hunts. Oh, he's heard something. I think it could be Cedric coming to join us. I wonder how much of a busy night he had running around chasing birds. I wonder if he had any success. It doesn't look like it. And he was chasing the wrong type of birds for a leopard. Tiny little testiculars that are no longer than about 4 centimeters, and they were very high up in quite little trees. So I think it would have been very difficult for him to actually catch anything. Hey guys, I just have to listen to the game drive radio for a second till Cedric gets here, and then I will hand over control of the sighting to him. Good morning, Purple Rain. Welcome back on the vehicle. Always great to have a question from you. Purple Rain would like to know, do I know where the Anderson male leopard is? I'm afraid I do not. I might be able to get an update from Cedric when he arrives. Maybe he's heard something, so I will try to find out for you, Purple Rain. Looks like he's heard something across the termite mound. But he looks as uncomfortable in the cold as I do. You can see in a very regal leopard pose. And we can see his right spot pattern nice and clearly there. So on the right he's got 3. The spot pattern I'm referring to is that the first line of spots above the whiskers. So you can see a very distinct 3 spots there on his right as he turns. And you can see he's all fluffed up from the cold. So guys, just hang on, Cedric's about to arrive, so I just need to chat to him quickly, and then I'll be back with you, and I'm just going to hand over control of the sighting to him. Said I've got your visual, keep coming. Station's handing over control of shadows, the sighting shadows Montoine to Cedric. Okay, back with you. Well, good morning, Jody and Christy. Welcome on this very cool and sunrise safari, and it is a sunrise safari full of kitty cats. The Nkahumas with Scarlet Buffalo's Hook and Sindile here with me on Harathusa. So, 2 questions there. So someone says he looks a bit hungry, and he is, not too bad though. And then the next one is, does he just wait there for his mom? He will move around quite a bit in this general area where he has been left waiting for his mom, and he'll be waiting for her to come and fetch him and take him to a kill, hopefully. He will try kill small things like dwarf mongoose and whatever else he might be able to find, and he's not nearly yet at an age where he's going to become independent. He's still going to be very reliant on his mother for a while yet, although young male leopards have been recorded becoming independent at around a year old. Generally in this area, it's about 2 years to actually even 2.5, 3 years sometimes, and it also just depends on the individual mother. So I'm just going to, beg you on, try reposition the vehicle in a little bit just to give the other guys a chance to have a good view as well. Morning, Sid. Good, thanks. So while we're going to reposition to give the other guys a good chance to have a look, we're going to cross across to Scotty, who's with the Nkahuma Pride, and we'll be back with you a little later in the show.
Well, very well done to Brent in pulling off what he set out to do this morning, and that was to find Sandile. It's not an easy job, so very, very well done to him. And what a beautiful leopard you've been looking at. We've repositioned the vehicle to get a different angle on two lionests that we couldn't see too well from where we were initially parked. And again, we've got a great, great low angle. We're shooting from eye level with them. And look at the size of her paws. Isn't this an awesome angle to see? And we got lucky this morning. Thankfully, we didn't have to track them down. It was sheer fluke that we bumped into them, but we'll bank that because sometimes you need luck on your side out here. Marianne has noticed that they all have a pinkish tinge on their chests and necks. And could that be from feeding recently? It certainly could be. And they all look quite full-bellied. I think they killed something of a medium size, possibly a kudu, or possibly two smaller animals, because they've all had a decent meal but are not extremely full-bellied. Wouldn't it be wonderful to know what exactly they did catch and how that whole event unfolded? Good to know that they were successful though, because earlier on in the night they were seen in a failed buffalo hunt, but that was early on, probably 12 hours ago. And they obviously managed to find something else between then and now. Look at the little foot twitching as if it's got some earphones plugged in, as if it's listening to music. That's awesome. I wonder what song it's singing away to itself. So thanks for sending that through, Marianne, and it's really great when you do send through observations. Quite often you will detect things before we do, and it's great when you alert us to that, so thank you. There's some Aramark babblers calling off in the distance. You may have heard some go-away birds letting off a few calls earlier, and the bush is slowly coming alive now that it's warming up. A lot of the animals out here will take some time to adjust to or from the cold evenings. Not these lion though, they'll be loving this cool weather. Safari Hayes would like to know, or my thoughts on the fact that she said, thank goodness I didn't get out to track in case, you know, because these lions were just around the corner. And yes, I guess it is a bit of a blessing in disguise, but more for the lion than for me. My experience with this pride of lion, when we do find them on foot, they often tend to run off, and they've never been confrontational towards me. I'm sure that could change, and we must be very cautious of falling into a false sense of security when you do become used to any given animal, because they are wild, and at any moment they could snap and feel pressured, and when they feel pressured and feel like their life or other pride members' lives are in danger, they may charge. In this scenario, because it's very open, I think they would have just seen me and probably run off a few meters before lying down and resting again. So I don't think it would have been an issue had they have seen me on foot, and it is important to remember that a lot of the times we actually find animals is when we are off on foot looking for them. So provided you know how to react to any given animal, and there are slightly different behavioral things that you should do when you do see animals. One example of which is when you come across lions on foot, it's best to maintain eye contact with them, whereas leopards, you kind of need to look at them out the corner of your eye and just make sure that you've got them in your periphery. So that's important to know. Take a close look down here. Some of the go-away birds that arrived earlier have come down to drink. can just see their heads poking out of the water's edge there. And we got lucky. I arrived here, and a few minutes before arriving, said that I expect there to be nothing here. And then I only spotted one of the two Egyptian geese. Thankfully, Wium was on top of things, and he got both of them framed perfectly. And while we were looking around, I noticed the one lioness lying behind a bush, and got extremely excited initially, but then I think Wium did a great job in building up a little bit of suspense before revealing who we had found. There's also some Burchell starlings calling now, and further off to the right, also along the water's edge, are some Egyptian geese that we saw from a much longer distance earlier, and they are very pretty birds. So it might be worth taking a closer look, as it looks like they begin to acquire their morning breakfast. They'll feed mainly on aquatic plant matter, as well as grass, so they're not strictly reliant on aquatic matter, but will also feed on grass along the banks of any rivers or waterholes. James would like to know if we see any true geese in South Africa, because this is actually a duck. And well done, James, that is correct. And yes, we do indeed see true goose or geese in South Africa. The spur-wing goose is one of them. It's a mighty, mighty goose, probably 2 times the size of these individuals. And what I'll do is I'll just get a picture in the book for you. There is a very small chance we could see some here in the Sabi Sands. We do see them from time to time, but not very commonly. And that pygmy goose, I think, is also a true goose that we do have a very slight chance of seeing. Aren't they wonderful to watch? Flying is something I'd always love to be able to do, but swimming like a duck, just plonking into the water, floating perfectly and paddling away with your feet must also be a very, very nice feeling. Well, it looks like one lioness is looking very closely towards those Egyptian geese, but I just want to show you a spur-wing goose quickly. And then we will send you across to the lion. So the spur-wing goose is right up at the top here, and it is double the size and weight of the Egyptian goose. And the reason why it's called the spur-wing goose is the picture doesn't show it, but on the corner of its wing they've got a very sharp spur made out of cartilage that they will use for fighting. And it can be sometimes an inch long, really big spur. And we do sometimes see them flying over. We could potentially see them here one day. The comb duck we also have a small chance of seeing here, or knob-billed duck was its previous name. Good, James, thanks for pointing that out. And let's take a closer look at this lion. It's got its head up. I wonder what it can see. Possibly something's coming down to the waterhole for a drink that it's seen. And even though they are full-bellied and it looks like they did have a successful night hunting last night, that is not to say that they will not take any opportunities that come towards them this morning. You can see by the way she's shifting her head, there is something up ahead there. Now, Casey would like to know, what is the proper reaction for a lion charge? You typically want to stand your ground. That is first and foremost, and also maintain eye contact. It can also sometimes bode in your benefit to shout and make a noise, wave your arms high in the air, making yourself look bigger. And if you're in a group, it's best to stick together, because then you become one unit and one force to be reckoned with, and the lion will just see one large mass that it would think twice about jumping onto. So standing your ground is critical. If you try and run from lion or just about any other animal out here, not only will you give them the impression that they are stronger than you and on top of the scenario, but they will also have their natural chase mechanism triggered. And most importantly, everything out here is faster than us. Every single mammal basically that we see will be faster than us. There may be one or two that aren't, but hippo, elephant, buffalo, lion, impala, ostrich, and anything else you can think of will catch you. It's just a matter of time. So running from an animal means you're just going to be out of breath when they kill you. So it's not something I would suggest. And by standing your ground, you counter-react what animals will usually do when encountered by them, and that makes them think twice about committing to a full attack. There will come a time, though, when you do need to back up and give the lion some space, but it needs to be done slowly and whilst you're facing forwards towards them. You don't want to turn your back to them, you always want to keep facing them, and very slowly, almost moonwalk backwards, because you do want to extract yourself from the dangerous situation, but it needs to be done very slowly. Each scenario, though, is very different, and it's difficult when training up-and-coming guides as to what exactly to do in any given scenario, because there are always different variables that could play out, and that's also important to remember. Good question, though, and it really is a rush. It's not something we want to force upon the lions, but from time to time, when looking for them, you may startle them and get a little bit of a charge, or it could simply be one pride that is notorious for being more aggressive to us on foot. The Ottawa pride, which is a pride of lions that I've viewed that still occur to the south of us in the Sabi Sands, a pride that back when I was spending time with them 3 or 4 years ago, they were extremely aggressive on foot, and basically every time we tracked them we would know and expect a charge. What have you seen up there? She's still staring very intently, so possibly a small antelope coming down to drink. We can't see from the angle where we're at. Debbie, thanks for sending your question through. And Debbie has noticed Sindile yawning just before you came across to us, and also that lion will very often roar. And what does that mean? Is it a display of their teeth, or is it simply to show that they're a little bit sleepy? Well, yes, I think it's more than a display, or it's not often a display of their size and strength. So unlike hippo, who will open their mouth very wide to display their huge teeth, lion aren't doing it for that reason. I think it's like you say, sleepiness, but also it's very often done just before they get up. And a yawn is basically a very big or deep breath which allows more oxygen to get into your body, and that is why we do yawn. When we're feeling tired and sleepy, our body's natural trigger is to yawn, therefore try and increase the oxygen intake into your body and get you a little bit more active. And that's why quite often with the big cats, if we see them lying down and then they begin to yawn, possibly 2 or 3 times, it's often a very good indicator that they will get up and move. Now let's take a close look here, because while we've been chatting I didn't notice one did get up and move, and it could well have yawned beforehand, so sadly we missed that. That would have been perfect timing. But let's take a close look at the one that's left here. Because it has been left alone, I'm guessing it may get up and join the rest of the pride. And before it does that, let's see if it yawns. Oh, look at her body language. What is going on there? Hello. What have you seen? We'll give it a few moments and then possibly creep forward to see if we can see what it is she's looking at. But where we parked, judging by the angle that she's looking at, we wouldn't be able to see whatever it is. There's too many thick bushes between us and there. My predictions are that this lioness is going to realize she's been left alone by the other one and let off 1 or 2 yawns and possibly retreats, although she does seem captivated by whatever it is she's seen. Look at those eyes. Okay, well I do just want to give it another minute or so to see if we don't get a yawn and then a movement from her. I think what's distracting her from moving to the rest of the pride is whatever she has seen up ahead. Well, Janet is interested to know if what we've just been discussing regarding yawning and it being a common display or behavioral movement before big cats get active, is that also applicable for dogs? And yes, to a degree, I've noticed wild dogs are similar to that, and also hyena. I've also even seen warthogs in the morning waiting to exit their burrow, yawning. That's a hilarious yawn to see, because they can only open their mouth such a narrow gap, but you can see them yawning away. It's one of my favorite things to actually see out here, and sadly I haven't been able to share it with you before, but seeing a warthog yawn is really interesting. And again, it was early morning while they're waking up trying to get more oxygen into their body. But it certainly is applicable with most of the predators we see out here. Carolina in Santa Monica. What would happen if we were to give a very slow blink to a lion? Now I'm assuming this is when we are on foot, as this is a subject we've been discussing this morning. If you come across a lion on foot and you're giving them a stare down and you do a long slow blink, what would happen? I'm not too sure, but whoever is willing to do a long slow blink when a lion is under attack or thinking about attacking you deserves a trophy for bravery, because it is not something you would want to do. It would be horrifying. So I'm not too sure what would happen in that scenario. It could induce them to attack because they've noticed that you are short-circuiting essentially, but it's a scenario that I've never experienced. It is believed, I've heard, with people with domestic cats though, that a long slow blink is behavior relating to affection, and if your cat does give you a long slow blink, it's kind of telling you how much it loves you. I think that is not necessarily false, and it could very well be true, but that's different in that you've bonded with that domestic cat to a degree of friendship or a relationship, you could say, even though it is human animal. Even though we spend time with these animals, we don't bond with them and cuddle with them, so I doubt a long blink will convey the same message. Well, this is great. We've got a lioness in the foreground with those beautiful yellow eyes, and in the tree in the background we've got a Burchell starling. So two very beautiful animals here at Djuma, one feathered, one furry, but great to have them in the same shot. Yesterday we had a leopard and an elephant in the same shot, so it seems like Mother Nature is providing us with some great combo deals at the moment. Well, there's some bad news, folks, and it sounds like Brent may have lost Sindile, but he'd like to tell you about what's happened and give you an update on what his next plans are. So we will see you all a bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. We're still sitting here with this young male leopard. He's just heard a little bird alarming and he's picked up his head. Obviously, at this age, he's very, very curious. As we saw last night, he was chasing testiculars around and around with very little success. He's got a nice high vantage point up on this termite mound. So if any predators like a hyena or a lion were to come, or another male leopard, he would hopefully see or hear them first and be able to make his escape. At the moment, it looks like he's trying to avoid the cold as much as I am. Except I'm lucky enough to have a blanket, and he is not. Morning, Nora. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Nora. Nora would like to know if it had been Shadow that I walked into and not this little guy, would she have been as calm on foot? Probably, Nora. He was quite well hidden when I first saw him, even though I was quite close. Most leopards will try sort of flatten themselves to the ground on foot as long as you don't sort of make it obvious that you've spotted them and walked past. Although certain leopards do tend to slink away. I have seen Shadow slink away from us on foot before, but so far I don't think so. I think Shadow would have probably reacted very, very similarly to what he did. Morning, Norman from Sohab. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Norman. Norman said, obviously, we've all heard about that guide who was mauled by a leopard in the Kruger Park recently. And he'd like to know why the leopards in the Sabi Sands seem so calm in comparison to the leopards in the Kruger. Well, Norman, the Kruger is a very different type of area. Kruger is what you would call high-density, low-income ecotourism. So you have lots of people paying a little bit, whereas Sabi Sands is what you would call low-density, high-income. So one of the reasons that our animals stay so relaxed is we put never more than 3 vehicles into a sighting. So obviously that is to remove any pressure that these animals might feel from the vehicles. Whereas Kruger, it is a public place, it's a national park. You can have 20 vehicles in a sighting. I've seen very, very relaxed leopards in Kruger, just as relaxed as the ones in the Sabi Sands. That particular leopard had been in a fight and was very badly injured, and so the behavior was abnormal rather than normal. And it's just one of those things. And in an area where you have that many vehicles traversing every day, unfortunately, sometimes there are going to be accidents, even though they are very, very seldom. The other thing is a lot of leopards in the Kruger aren't relaxed because vast sections of the Kruger are not open to the public, so those leopards never see cars or people. So they tend to react very differently and tend to be very shy and slink away from the vehicles in the park. In your main tourist areas, like around Skakuza and Lower Sabi and Satara, the leopards there are just as relaxed as they are here in the Sabi Sands. Oh, tired kitty. Seems like after all the action we saw him doing last night, he's been quite lazy this morning. Probably had a busy night of chasing testiculars. So Purple Rain asked a little earlier about the Anderson male and if we had any updates on him. I got an update from Cedric a little bit earlier. The last time the Anderson male was seen was just to the south of us in a property called Shirley's. So he is around, but he's not in our Travis area at the moment. Good morning, Lisa. Welcome on this sunrise safari, even though it is quite a chilly one with no sun. Lisa would like to know what would happen if he were to come across one of these older males at the moment. So the three males been seeing, or I have not been lucky enough to see the Anderson male yet. Lisa would like to know what would happen. Well, I'm pretty sure Tingana probably thinks that this is his progeny, so Tingana would probably just ignore him. I'm not sure whether Shadow mated with Mvula as well before this was born. Sean's nodding his head, giving me some information from across there. So Mvula would probably also consider this to be his progeny. So Mvula and Tingana he'd be quite safe with. However, I think if the Anderson male had to come across, he would try to kill him. And this is probably the reason we think Shadow's been moving further and further into Djuma and Voyatela, which is Mvula's territory, and where Tingana is now pushing Mvula. And it's probably to avoid the Anderson male while this guy is still of an age that he would be killed, and he would definitely be killed by the Anderson, because if the Anderson male were to kill him, it would immediately get a Shadow to come into estrus again. And as we were discussing that really interesting new data, that female leopards and female lions will quite often, once they have had sort of a territory takeover, they will come into a false estrus, and they will actually mate with these new males, but not actually ever get pregnant from it. And only the second estrus in about 3 months' time would they actually get pregnant from. And they think this is a sort of a defense mechanism to make sure that these new males that they're mating with are actually going to hang around and keep territory. So I hope you guys are getting some great screenshots here. He is posing quite nicely, even though the light isn't so wonderful, but it is always amazing to be able to spend such quality time with these animals. Hi, John from sunny California. Hopefully you're having a sunnier day than we are. John would like to know, he said he's just heard that Anderson had a battle with Lamula to the west of us, and he came out victorious. So it's wanting to know whether him pushing now further into Tingana's territory, is it just him trying to enlarge his territory? Most definitely, obviously, from a male leopard's point of view, the larger the territory they control, with the more females in it, the more of his DNA he'll be able to spread. So that is obviously his first prize. He is trying to extend his gene line, so he'll want to mate and sire as many cubs as possible within the territory. So really, really, really interesting time now with all the different movements of male leopards at the moment. And yesterday we saw Tingana further east than we've ever seen him before, very much deep into what is traditionally called Mvula's territory. Hi, Gilly from Milwaukee. Thanks for another question. Gilly said that this little guy seems a little bit nervous today. Is it from vehicles and whatnot? Most definitely not Gilly. We see him so often. He is so relaxed. It's this gusting wind, so he's unable to sometimes hear or smell where a potential threat comes from. So most animals will be a little bit more nervous in this gusting wind. So it's got nothing to do with us being here. We're not having any effect. As you can see, he's fast asleep on top of that termite area. Hi, Lois in Buffalo, New York. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Lois would like to know how to spell Sindile. It is S-I-N-D-I-L-E. S-I-N-D-I-L-E. And from now, we're going to take you from one flat cat to a slightly larger flat cat with Scotty, and we'll be back with you a little later in the show.
Welcome back, everyone. And it seems like the cats that both Brent and myself have found this morning are in a very sleepy mood. But thankfully, we've got this one individual who's lifting her nose up into the wind, smelling the air for any potential signs or clues. You can see she's almost drinking it in. Interesting to note that Sindile is a bit nervous this morning, but again, just like I was saying earlier, how the wind can benefit predators in muffling their approach as they may stalk their prey, it will also make certain predators, like a young male leopard, feel uneasy because he won't know if he's being stalked by anything. Well, one happy family having a snooze. We probably won't spend too much longer here. It's a tricky one though, because there is a chance that something could come and they could try and catch it, which is something we would like to show you and like to be a part of, or spectate at least. But when that may happen, we can't be sure. So we're probably gonna head off and see what other action we can find. I can't resist going to look for any sign of Tingana or Mvula. But we will spend a little bit longer here, answer a few more questions, and then head off and see what other animals are out there. We've got a question through from Tula, and that's a name I haven't heard before, so good to have you on board, and thanks for sending your question through. Tula has noticed that these lion all look fit and healthy and also quite young, and would like to know, what age are they? Well, they are varying ages. There's 2 older lioness, who I think are the core of this pride, and 3 slightly younger ones that are coming into the age now where they should be sexually mature. So there should be 5 sexually mature lioness quite shortly within this one. They are probably between 7 and 10 years old, and the 3 that are coming into sexual maturity will just be approaching 4. Their brother, Junior, a young male, also from a similar litter, I believe. So also around 3.5, 4 years old, approaching 4 years. And then 2 much smaller sub-adults, which are about 1.5 years old. So a mixed batch, but 8 lions in total. This is the young male who's just poked up his head. And you're right, Tula, they certainly are looking fit and healthy and strong. Oh, a little sneeze there. There's a lot of dust around at this time of year, as well as grassies that may get into the nose. Oh, look at that. Maybe I'll let off another yawn and he'll display his teeth for us. Or is it a fur ball that he may be wanting to get rid of? Let's watch closely here. Well, now that we've got such a tight angle on his nose, it's going to be a great opportunity to wanting to know if pink noses help you to assume the age of an animal or determine the age of the animal. And yes, to a degree, the general rule is that younger lion and leopard will have pink noses and they will become darker as they become older. But it's no guarantee, and you do sometimes get some older lioness as well as leopard who do have pink noses. So it can be used as a rough guide, but there's no strict rules confirming that. Ooh, you can see that lioness picked up her head very quickly behind him. But again, in these windy conditions, she could have just heard a rustle of the leaves blowing in the wind that got her alert. In these cloudy conditions, you can see these lions are very, very relaxed and comfortable. They are also full-bellied, which is something we need to factor into their equation. But Bray would like to know, how do temperatures affect lion? And they can tolerate very cold temperatures, from what I've seen, and are typically more comfortable in cooler weather. So it's more likely for us to see them active during the daylight hours in our winter months. Whereas in summer, unless they've got a very good opportunity to hunt something that may stumble upon them as they sleep during the day, they will typically not move during most of the daylight hours because it's extremely hot and humid here. And most animals will prefer to move at night. And it kind of makes perfect sense for them with their ability to see very well in the dark and therefore hunt successfully under cover of darkness. It goes hand in hand with keeping cool during the day and having good hunting opportunities in the dark. So temperature certainly does play a role on them. But it's important to remember that Africa has got many varying climates that lion will occur in. And like I say, they can withstand very cold environments as well as very hot environments, but their activity will alter depending on the temperature, and typically they will not be active when it's hot. question through from... And, I mentioned earlier that the junior, the young male lion, will get the choice parts of the kill and be able to therefore feed on more meat than any of the other lions. Which part of the animal is the tastiest or the best part? And it's not really about taste, it's more about getting to a part of the carcass that is most easy to consume. Now, depending on where they are on the feeding process, that will alter. Quite often, the hind quarters muscles on a lot of the animals, the back legs, providing with the most power for animals to run and move. So you'll often find the rump is one of the best places to initially be, but you do also get other parts of the carcass that may be favorable for the lion to feed on easily and therefore consume time. And depending on, like I say, how much they've fed on the kill and how much meat is left, he will move around that carcass, chasing the other lion off and getting to whichever part of the kill he feels he can consume the most of. So that's typically the case with lion, but like I said, it will depend on the individual animal that they've killed and that animal's anatomy, but quite often it's the rear end that is the easiest part to start consuming the most of. And hopefully one day we'll actually get to see these lion bring down an animal and then compete, because we've yet to see that. And the only way we'll find out exactly what he's doing and exactly how much he's overpowering the rest of the pride will be when we get to see it live. Let's take one last look at these lion, and I'm guessing we'll then head off. Sindile still hasn't moved a muscle, so you will be joining me when we do head off in search of other animals. Well, the great thing about these, got good prospects for the evening. Once they've digested a little bit of whatever they've caught last night, they will be more inclined to move and potentially show us some more action. But right now I can't help but feel we may be missing out on something else that's happening here at Djuma. So let's head off into the area where we last had Tingana yesterday, and maybe we'll get to see some male leopards interacting. Well, thank you, Nkuhuma Prize, for pleasantly surprising us with your presence here at Buffelshoek Dam. I love being proved wrong by the animals, especially when I made a prediction that nothing would be here, arrived, confirmed that nothing was here, and then after further inspection realized there was a lion lying just a few meters away from us. So, a great surprise. And let's see what other surprises are waiting for us. Stations leaving the Nkuhuma Pride, lying up on the eastern side of the dam wall. No vehicles. Copy that, Craig. Did you have any mkonzo this morning, or vingwe? Okay, well, nobody has had any luck locating in male leopard tracks this morning, but in these overcast conditions it may well have been that The tracks were there, but not easy to see. Here comes Craig now, who we were just chatting to on the radio. Wium will not be filming him though, and I'll explain why shortly. It's fresh this morning.
It is a tad, but
How are you doing, Craig? Morning, everyone.
Morning, morning.
How are you doing? Enjoy.
It's Brent, the West.
Yeah,
The follow-up managed to get my shutters not right.
yeah, he did. I'm not sure where, but he has got it.
Cool.
Have a good one, Craig.
All right.
Cheers, guys. So the reason why Wium pans away while we're having a conversation is that none of his guests would have signed the release forms allowing us to broadcast them to you across the world. So I just want to avoid any admin there. Sherry in Los Angeles, good to have you with us. Sherry is wondering where Kunyuma and Quarantine are, two young male leopards, the sons of Karuna. And they were two leopards that we saw more than any other leopards for kind of November, December, January, February, and a little bit into March, I guess. And in April, May, June, they've started spending less time here on Juma and have been seen elsewhere to the south of us, to the west of us, and to the east of us. So they appear to be spreading into the Sabi Sands, not north into Buffelshoek and the Manyaleti. And the guides certainly will be able to keep a close eye on who they are, even if they move off into the far reaches of the southern Sabi Sands. We are all in communication with one another, and guides are very quick to share information as to who's who and the lineage of certain animals. So they will be able to be kept track of and their movements over the years, provided that they do not go into the Manyaleti and the Kruger. Then it'll be a little bit more difficult for us to keep tabs on them. And I don't think they're gone for good, even though we haven't been seeing them necessarily. We have had tracks of what look like younger males. It can be quite confusing and can confuse their tracks with bigger males like Mvula and Tingana. But I still think we're going to get a few sightings of them before they disappear for good. And who knows, in many years from now, maybe 5 years from now or 6 years from now, once they've become big males and are dominant, they could well shift back into this area. So we will be able to keep a rough tab on them. And isn't it wonderful that you can keep track of such a shy and elusive animal? Whereas here in the Sabi Sands, we're very privileged and allowed insight into their lives. In Ohio has noticed that there's both a lot of territorial shifts amongst the lion as well as the leopard in this area. And is it related to the season, that it's winter and dry, or is it just pure coincidence? And I think it's pure coincidence. What's happened is that animals have come of age at similar times, be it coalitions of males or lioness growing up in prides, making prides stronger and more formidable. And the same with leopards. Young females becoming bigger and stronger, pushing their mothers who are becoming older, or simply young males growing up to big males, like the Anderson male, for example, who's now expanding his territory into Tingana's territory from the south and the west. So it's merely coincidence that all this is happening now, and I don't think it can be attributed to the seasons. It's more age related. Well, I chatted briefly about release forms that the guests on all the vehicles would not have signed, and therefore we cannot film them. And Edward just made a funny remark saying that we need to get the Anderson male leopard to sign his release form so that we can start filming him more readily. Edward, I cannot agree more with you. And I think the fact that Anderson is pushing deeper into Arethusa is going to cause us to spend a lot more time across there looking for him. And don't worry, we will certainly be getting you some more visuals of him in the coming future. And again, who knows whether we'll get to see interaction between either Anderson or Tingana, which are two likely opponents, or Tingana and Mvula, who again are another two likely components. We only know the middle of the sandwich. Tingana is at the middle of the sandwich. Either side of the Anderson male and Mvula will be other males. So Mvula will also be sandwiched between another male to the west and to the north, and Anderson by another one from the south. So we sadly won't know those interactions, but we could potentially see some really interesting stuff that I've yet to see male leopards do with one another, even vocalizing side by side and scent marking, or actually getting into proper blows. Mike McKay on Twitter would like to know how close is the Nkuhuma Pride, the Pride of Lion we just left, to the Styx Pride, which is a pride of 4 lioness with 3 young cubs. Those 4 lioness are not always together, and more typically we've actually seen 2 groups of 2. They were last seen yesterday to our east, probably about 2 miles or 3 miles as the crow flies from where we are. But let me just ask Craig if they've been located this morning. They were on a buffalo kill in that area, so I don't think they would have finished it, but the 2 big Matimba males were with them. Craig for Scott? Craig, do you have any idea where the Styx and Matimbas are? Copy, thanks. Okay, well, Craig has just confirmed that they are still on their buffalo kill, about probably 2.5 miles away from the Nkuhumas. And as far as I'm aware, the Nkuhumas don't spend too much time there. So it would be more likely for them to bump into the Nkuhuma Pride and therefore have some kind of a danger to them and their cubs if they were more on Juma. But for now they are safe. So Wium and I are going to continue heading south, kind of along our eastern boundary. We're not quite on it, we're running parallel to it. And I think somewhere in amongst all these bushes are some leopard, but certainly some other animals that we're going to try and find you. And while we do that and scratch around, we're going to send you back over to Brent and see what Sindile is up to. Enjoy, and I hope he hunts some more little mongoose or squirrels for you and provides you with some more entertainment. See you later.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we're still sitting with this little guy. He hasn't moved much at all. Still sitting on top of this termite mound. Bit of yawning. Oh, there you go. And we're hoping he might, in this cool weather, have gone and done some playing or chasing of birds. I think he might have done too much last night. And now he is a very sleepy kitty. We are going to spend a little bit more time here. I was also hoping that there was a possibility that we might be able to witness a greeting ceremony between Shadow and the cub. If Shadow has made a kill and came back, and we could even possibly follow them back to a kill, but so far, no luck. But it is an absolutely special thing to be able to spend as much time as we have just sitting with this little guy.
Now is a good time for him to get himself into all different types of trouble. So, you'll experience while he's spinning that what it's like to be a leopard. You'll realize very quickly that not everyone is his friend. He's looking for his food and trying to distinguish between his friend and then even food. Well, how do you actually get this food? What is food? So it's a good chance for him to catch squirrels and lizards, monkeys, other small, quite easy items. And this is all part of just honing their skills, because eventually he's going to be by himself. No one else can do it. He's probably only about 10 or 11 months old.
Hello, Jan from a Philly.
Stay with his
I hope your summer is warmer than our winter at the moment, Jan. Jan would like to know, she's noticed that at the bottom of the leopard's body, the rosettes are solid, or it's more solid spots rather than rosettes. Is this the norm? It is, Jan. You'll notice that on most leopards. All the extremities and stuff seem to be far more solid spots than the actual rosettes. Moving through to the belly, which is obviously quite white and fluffy. But obviously when they're lying like this, as you can see, they'll try keep the sort of dark and spotted spots visible. And it works as camouflage. So even though we can see him very clearly now, if we had to zoom out, and we go to a full wide, you can notice as we go further and further, he becomes slightly less and less visible.
very confident, with life. He's not worried or scared or anything.
Now, see, if you had to see that from a distance,
When he goes wandering far,
I mean, it almost looks like a tree stump. Except for the little ear flick there. But you can see how that camouflage works, even in an open piece of ground like he's lying at the moment. So really, really incredible. What we're going to do now is we're just going to try reposition a little bit so we can get a different angle on him, and hopefully we're still going to spend a little bit more time here. I've just got that sort of little nagging itch at the back of my head that says possibly Shadow's going to arrive. So we're just going to move so we can have a different angle on him. A comment from Charlie who says, wasn't it a couple of days ago that we saw both Shadow and Simbile together? I'm not sure. I wasn't here at the time. I think I was on leave. So maybe I'll ask Scott just now. So he's moved very little since I found him this morning. So if we come out a little bit, Jeandre, and down to the left, you'll see a little hollow on the side of the termite mound. There we go. So that little sort of, where that little tuft of grass is there, that's where I spotted him while I was walking, and he was flat into that hole. He sort of almost melted into the termite mound. And since we've been here, he's moved all of a meter to the top of the termite mound. Oh, it's cold. Hello, Jerry from Maryland. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, even though there's no sun, Jerry. Great to have you with us. I just found out as well that the last time we saw Shadow and this little guy together was about 4 days ago on an impala kill, which was stolen by hyenas. But Jerry would like to know. Sorry, Jerry, I just thought I heard something there. Sorry, Jerry, I was just listening there. I thought I might have heard some alarm calls in the distance. Well, back, Jerry, I would like to know, do I know where Shadow is? So, Jerry, we tracked Shadow yesterday, and she crossed into Juma. We lost her tracks quite close to the main access road to the Vuyatela camp. So, possibly she's still on Juma. She might have done a big loop, which she often does, and then come back into the sort of western sections of the north, or of our northern neighbour.
Most of them don't make it a year, so it's pretty pointless giving them a name, and then you get to know them, and then everyone starts getting personally attached to them. They get killed by either another leopard or a hyena or whatever it is. But usually if they've made it a year, then we've managed to reduce.
So we're going to cross across to Scotty, who's with something a little different, and we'll sit here and we'll be back with you a little later in the show.
Welcome back, everyone. And you can tell how close we are to this buffalo. This is awesome. And look at the oxpecker. Busy doing a great job in looking for any parasites to feed on, and that will also help rid this big old Cape buffalo of these blood-sucking parasites. What an awesome view this is. It's a young red-billed oxpecker, and that's why it is yet to get the red bill and bright yellow ring around the eye. It would have been born in the summer months, probably 6 months ago. And by born, I mean hatched. As you can see, the buffalo is enjoying this downtime, and he's been chewing the cud. There he goes again. And we're going to send you back to Brent. We just thought we'd show you that quick close-up of the oxpecker, and now that it's moved off, back to Sandile.
Welcome back, everyone. Unfortunately, we just flew away, but one of the terrors of Sandile that terrorized him last night, the little rattling testicular. I'm just going to grab my book and I'll show you what a rattling testicular looks like. And that is what he was chasing around with very little success last night. There was one who just, I can hear them calling quite close to us here, but they've disappeared. There are many cisticulars, and birders often refer to them as LBJs, which means little brown job. And quite often the only way to tell the difference between them is from their call. So there we go. Number 1 is the rattling cisticular. He's got a very distinct rufous camp, nice little sort of pinkish legs, but they are quite difficult to tell apart, cisticulars. That's what he was chasing around, for those who were on the Sunset Safari last night with us, chasing, and no success. We're going to sit here for a little bit longer and see if he actually does anything. Otherwise, we're also going to move along and see what else we can find out here. Maybe head down towards the Arathusa waterhole. Not sure yet. Hi, Michelle from Massachusetts. Not from Boston, but still a Bruins fan. So, nice to hear that. My mom actually lived in Massachusetts for a while, so I know a little bit about the sporting teams in that area. Michelle's asking about that white and dark tip on the back of the leopard's ears there. It seems more pronounced in this young male than other leopards. And that is probably because he is young. As they get older and the flies start biting and tattering their ears and they get torn, that will not be as pronounced. So it is probably just because he's young and he hasn't had too much of the sort of hardness of life out in the bush yet. So there we can see it quite nicely, what Michelle was talking about, how the top half of the ears is lighter and the bottom half got that dark patch. And that is a following mechanism. So if you follow a leopard from behind it, that dark patches, that dark and white is quite easily discernible. So it'll be more for leopard females with cubs who are looking to, and the cubs will be looking for that to follow. And of course that wonderful white tip to the tail. So I'm just going to move again a little bit, see if we can get a little bit closer to it. We can get a nice close-up on the schnoz. Is the angle going to be too much for you? How's that? Hello, little man. So we are now eye level with the little guy. Using, of course he moves a little bit. Very, very still morning. We can hear a few birds, but this wind makes it very difficult to hear a lot of other things. And you'll notice his ears are constantly moving, just checking for all the surrounding noises to make sure there isn't any danger possibly approaching him. You can see that wind gusting, moving the grass stalks around him. Oh, poor over eyes. It's so cold. Where's my mom with my dinner? Morning, Lucy from Columbus, Ohio. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Lucy. Lucy would like to know, do lions and leopards ever yawn from boredom? No, they don't. They are yawning for lack of oxygen and to sort of get their oxygen going, and generally you'll notice they yawn quite a lot before they move, and that's just more to wake up. So they do not yawn from boredom. And even us in humans, when we yawn, it isn't exactly from boredom. It is as a result of boredom that we become a little bit bored, and our body starts going into a sort of slightly more vegetative state. And to try kick us out of that, we yawn to try and inhale more oxygen into our bodies. So guys, I don't think much is going to be happening here. Shadow's obviously off hunting, and she's left Sindile in this area. Oh, there's a bit of movement. She's left Sindile in this area to wait for her to return, and looks like he had a night full of adventure. So this morning he is quite stationary, but hopefully when we try to find him again on the Sunset Safari, he will be a little bit more active. But it has been so great to spend so much time with this little guy, even though he has been sleeping most of the time. So I think we're going to meander on, see what else we can find, and we'll definitely come back to check on him on the Sunset Safari. Okay, goodbye, little Aura, and we will hopefully see you a little later. Behave yourself, don't get into too much trouble while we're gone. So we are just inside Arethusa, and I think I might take a meander towards the Knobthorne open area, see if we can find anything there, and then I think I'm going to cross back towards Juma and check around Impala Plains for Shadow. So we'll see if we can possibly find his mom. The last place I had tracks for her was in that area. So we're going to check along here and then through back to Juma to the last area we had tracks. Hopefully we have some luck with mum and son. update the Game Drive channel that we're leaving him. Station's leaving Shadows Montron, lying up in the same position atop the Shidulu on parallel road, just to the south of the Shkova and just to the north of the link that goes to the signboards. So while we make our way towards Knobthorne open area, we're going to cross across to Scotty and see what he's been up to for the last while, and we'll be back a little later.
Welcome back, and it's been a tough morning, I guess, other than obviously finding Sindile and the Nkuhuma Pride. Most other animals seem to be seeking shelter out of the wind, so possibly in some of the lower-lying riverbeds where they are sheltered from the windy conditions. But having said that, we have just seen a large herd of impala up ahead, so that's a pleasant surprise, and we'll go and spend some time with them. There's been no sign of any male leopard tracks in the area that we were hoping to find some. That simply means we haven't seen anything. But we will continue to fine-comb this area. There has to be some forms of life out there, and we certainly know that there's a lot of impala up ahead, and it's going to make for a great sighting, I'm sure. I wonder where Shadow is. Busy hunting, whether she's on Juma or I'm on either property, so that's the mother of Sindile. It would be unlikely that she's stalking these impala because it's quite far east into Juma. We haven't seen her this far east yet. Okay, well, I guess the herd is split up on both sides of the road, but our best option is off to the right here. You may have noticed the black bird fly and land on the branch on the top right of your screen. That's a fork-tailed drongo, the usual suspect to see following herds of herbivores in the hope that it can feed on insects that they chase up. Other birds that I'm sure we will see, and I've already heard some, are the red-billed oxpeckers. The same bird we saw up close and personal just a few moments ago, feeding on the buffalo. Is that a leaf on her back, or is it a little white spot? Interesting. Looks like a little tuft of fur on her bottom. And it's not just white, but it's also protruding. Possibly an old injury or possibly just a birth defect, hard to say. But an interesting diagnostic feature. We have seen another female impala who's got a white spot between her shoulder blades. And the majority of them do seem to be feeding on grass shoots on the ground, but a few are also browsing on leaves. And the fact that they can both browse and graze puts them at an advantage over other herbivores who are more fussy than them. And their wide diet will allow them to maximize all the different opportunities for feeding out here. Contributing factor which makes them so successful. There's some oxpeckers fluff, and you'll now hear them chirping away. In these windy conditions, we can sometimes see the antelope getting a little bit excited or nervous, and it appears like the herd has decided now to join up with the other members on the left of the road, and sometimes if you get lucky they all start running across. I don't think that's going to be the case here, but let's wait and see. Some may start to feel left out and then start running and jumping across the road. Here we go, here comes one at high speed. And the rest appear to be following. There's still a few more on the way. There we go. Wonderful. Still a few more on the way, but they appear to not. Yeah, I lie. They are also getting excited and doing a little trot across the road. Brent, welcome back, and no major updates other than the Nkuhumas at Buffelshoek Dam. Okay, well, that looks like most of the herd is now crossed, and they are such wonderful animals. Sometimes we do neglect them a little bit because they are numerous, but there are so many beautiful animals out here that we can show you, and this is certainly one of them. Now, as we drive along, some of you may have just joined the safari. We got off to a great start. Brent found the young male leopard Sindile. We managed to find the Nkuhuma Pride of Lion, both of whom were fast asleep. So we've headed off in search of more action. If any of you are interested to know any questions or send through your comments to us, please do so. You would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or send an email to questions@wildearth.tv. So send your question through and let's chat about the morning and anything you may want to know. Brent has come back onto Juma, so he switched onto the Juma radio frequency. So I just gave him a quick update that you may have heard. And what he updated us is that he's going to search an area where Shadow has been spending time hunting. Not necessarily now, but he may come across her. Go ahead. Drakensberg, Ledwood onto Gari Main. And hopefully he gets lucky there, following up on that leopardess, looking to acquire their next meal. Donna from Canada would like to know if either lions or leopards will feed on fish. And they certainly will. Leopards, especially young leopards, as well as old ones, will be very opportunistic and feed on catfish that we actually may witness and we may be able to share with you as the waterholes that we have here at Juma begin to dry up or continue to dry up. They will leave the poor catfish stranded with nowhere to go, making it a very easy prey source for leopard that I have seen feeding on fish before. It really is interesting to see how diverse their diets can be and how opportunistic they can be when it comes to feeding. Wouldn't it be wonderful seeing young Sindile fishing out some catfish from a drying wallow? Or any leopard for that matter. But like I say, I'm getting a little bit of a sweet spot for Sindile, I guess because we've spent a lot of time with them recently. And I think we are going to continue to spend a lot more time with them going forward over the next few months. and it's going to be great to watch him grow and develop, because he certainly still does have a lot more growing to do. He's probably going to double in size in the next few years, but in the next few months we could expect to see some fairly rapid changes. We're getting quite close to Treehouse Dam, and I guess earlier I said I wasn't expecting to find anything at Buffelshoek Dam, so we'll say the same thing again. We don't expect to find anything at Treehouse Dam, but there could be anything, and we were so pleasantly surprised by the Nkahuma Pride. It required no skill in finding them. We didn't follow not one single track. They'd come from further east, so they'd come from the north and the east into that property, and we hadn't actually bisected their tracks at any points over the drive. Well, earlier on I mentioned, or we were discussing, animals yawning and how predators will often, especially the cats, often yawn before they get up and move. But I did also mention that I have seen warthog yawning. Now, warthogs have got a very long nose, as you can imagine, and I'm going to do a side profile of a warthog yawning because it's hilarious. Unlike a hippo or a lion that can open its mouth very wide and show you its teeth, a warthog can only open its mouth like that. So it goes meh. A tiny little opening, because that's only as far as they can extend their jaws. Tara tried to find some clips on YouTube of warthog yawning and sadly couldn't find any, and that's why she asked for an impersonation, and now you've probably gotten a better idea of what to hopefully see on a future drive. We don't know where any warthog are currently sleeping at the moment. What I've found though with warthog is that they can be quite late starters and will often lie at the entrance to their burrow for quite some time, especially in winter. And it wouldn't surprise me even now at this time, no, now's maybe a bit late, but an hour after sunrise you can still see warthogs waiting in their burrows before heading out, and it's then that I've seen them yawning, only in their burrows. Speaking of predators and yawning, Georgianne, hello, and good to have you with us again. I'm just gonna stop and see if we can, oh no, they've flown off a bit far, but there are some red-billed waterpeas. Sorry, Georgianne, I will get back to you shortly. There are some birds that I'd like to show you. The ones that I was hoping to show you have moved a bit far away. They are the Hlegabafazi in Zulu, the cackling sister. But the Birchill starling's in the foreground, a very pretty bird. The Hlegabafazi you can hear calling quip, quip, quip in the background, but it's out of view sadly. So while we enjoy the view of this pretty Birchill starling, Georgianne is wondering if we know any intelligence on the wild dog that we occasionally see passing through Djuma and Arathusa. And I personally don't know too much about them. There is a chance that Brent may know where they are denning, but we're fairly certain that there is one den site on a property to the south and east of us in the Sabi Sands. That's one pack. And there's another pack to the north of us in all likelihood in the Magnoleti, who were denning. We did see 2 alpha females who were heavily pregnant. Interestingly, both quite late. They usually give birth in May, but these were both heavily pregnant still in the end of May, and they hadn't even found a den at that stage. There were some wild dog tracks just south of us, so there is a chance that they could come hunting on our property. But in all likelihood, we're probably going to have to wait a couple more months for the pups to become of a decent age, around about 3 months. And from 3 months of age, young wild dog will run with the pack. So they're quite small and vulnerable at this stage, and that's why wild dog are so vulnerable, especially in an area like this where the predator density is very high. So while the wild dog are on the run, and they do move at high speeds almost always from A to B and when chasing down prey, but they could stumble across lion, leopard and hyena that may all try and kill those pups. But from 3 months of age, so in the next month or so, I'm guessing, those pups will start running with the pack, and therefore we would be more likely to see them moving through our property again. The treehouse waterhole. I think we may head off to the hyena den sides to see what they're up to. There's a new addition to the hyena clan, and if it is your, it would be wonderful for us to show you that. Well, interestingly, we have found some Homo sapiens here at the waterhole. And I think they have parked their vehicle in the way where we would like to go, which is not a problem. Because, oh no, it will be a bit of a problem. Set up their table there. Okay, well, very nice to see some people having a leisurely coffee break mid-safari, and it is typical behavior. When you do come out, your guide and tracker will stop in both the morning and the afternoon to pour you either a hot or cold drink of your choice. And it's great to just stretch the legs. So if you haven't stretched your legs recently, I would suggest joining me, as I will also have not stretched my legs, and we need to get our blood pumping. So come on everyone, get up and shake around a little bit. Okay, just a little one. We're back and charged. The blood is pumping. I can think clearly again. But sadly no coffee on that little break. We've got a wonderful, wonderful question through from Debbie. And Debbie is interested to know, what would you suggest, what would I suggest in terms of budgeting for a safari? Would you allocate more time and money to a private reserve, or more time and money to the Kruger National Park, a public reserve that many people are allowed to drive around? Now, Debbie, a lot depends on your individual safari experience. have you been on safari once? Is it your first time coming to Africa? Or have you been here 15 times before? If it's your first safari, I would be inclined to suggest trying to come to private reserves like any of the lodges in the Sabi Sands. And the reason for that is your likelihood of seeing all of the high-profile animals, i.e. the big five, rhino, elephant, buffalo, lion and leopard, is very high. And on a first safari, most people do want to see the bigger, more impressive animals, which is completely understandable. But what you find is once people have been on safari several times, their needs start to change. And you start becoming more interested in the birds, or more interested in potentially a walking safari where you may not see as much as being in the vehicle, but the sightings you do have may be more memorable. So there are just so many variables depending on you as an individual that make it difficult for me to answer that question. But there are some very decently priced camps in the Sabi Sands. I know Juma for certain is a very, very reasonably priced camp for where you're getting to drive around and the experience you are getting. Whereas on the other hand, there are some incredibly expensive places to stay at in the Sabi Sands where you will get the same game viewing, but the food you eat and the wine you drink may be that much better. So there's all these little variables. It's important to remember though that in the Kruger National Park you'll typically be driving yourself around, and therefore depending on what you want, you can still see things driving yourself, but you may not have somebody there to interpret and tell you what's going on, but it may be more of an adventure. I personally love going into the Kruger National Park and just enjoying the changes of scenery and different places, as well as the animals that you bump into along the way. But the fact that you cannot off-road and you are limited by not being able to drive after dark, you have to be in camp before sunset, makes the public reserves obviously less appealing in certain regards to the private ones. But like I say, there are so many variables depending on the individual, who you're traveling with, how many people you're traveling with, that you would need to really sit down and talk to somebody like myself or a travel agent or even Brent and fine-tune a safari package especially for your exact needs. There are so many different camps in the Sabi Sands, let alone South Africa, or let alone Africa as a whole. And that's what makes planning an itinerary a quite complex process, and one where you need a very good relationship with whoever you're planning that itinerary with. Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that Rena enjoyed the little leg stretch. I'm also feeling rejuvenated, and good to hear that you are too. We're gonna send you over to Brent before he gets up to any mischief. You need to keep a close eye on Brent, otherwise he can lose focus. So go and make sure he's searching hard, and we will continue on our way to the hyena den. Hopefully they'll be there when we get there.
Welcome back, everyone. So we've been asked to do a little bit on medicinal plants, and I've been trying to find one we actually haven't done the medicinal uses of before. And here we go. Right in front of us is a tree we haven't done before, and it does have medicinal uses, and it's a tree we see quite often and we talk about quite often. It is a Balanites morgami, or a torchwood. And this is a particularly large torchwood in front of us here. Really, really beautiful. And the road junction here is actually named Balanites after the torchwood. So it is a very interesting one because it is quite noxious in a lot of things. And I've got my medicinal plant book here. And this one is actually quite a interesting book because it goes a lot more in depth than your most. It'll just tell you the traditional remedies, and that this actually goes into what scientific compounds are used and what they can possibly be used for in the medical industry. So this is for Ramey, who wants to know a little bit more about this. If you have a look over here, that is where a piece of bark has been removed from balanites for traditional uses. It is used in a ritual emetic, so to purge the body, get rid of a lot of the sort of bad toxins or bad spirits that can become in the body. I mean, as we know, the fruits are quite lethal. There's a fruit here. And they are used to poison freshwater snails and actually been recommended as a natural controlling agent for bilharzia. And the chemical structures in the balanites have been said it is actually could be used as a starting material for steroids. So, and the actual chemical compounds that are in there are steroidal glycosides, and as well, or especially one called cryptogenin, and it also has vanillic and syringic acids. So quite a lot of bad stuff, but it can be used quite effectively for good. The fruits as well, which are quite noxious, but not the inside, the oil of the fruit, which is the real poisonous part, is sometimes used to treat coughs. So quite an interesting thing about this book is that it takes you a little bit more in depth, and you can actually see the different chemical compounds that are used that will often be found in our sort of commercial pharmaceuticals. So just remember, all the pharmaceuticals and stuff are originally derived from some natural base. So very interesting. And balanites is not one we've done before, and because it's quite often poisonous, we don't often consider it to be a medicinal plant, traditionally used as well to poison fish. If you're hungry, you get a section of a river that's dried up, and there's a pool separate from other water, and you crush up the seeds and you pop them in there, and you will be able to poison the fish. I'm just going to have a quick look, see if I can find a dry seed. Go. Unfortunately, I think this one has been burrowed into again. I'm going to go have another look now, but I'm trying to find one that an insect hasn't decided to make a home yet. I'm going to just check to see if we can get any of that oil. And the reason it's often called a torchwood is because that oil in the seeds is very, very flammable. So I'm going to try. It's very hard. I'm just going to do this over here. Wider. I think I need a nutcracker. Okay, that's not going to work. Let's try to figure another plan. Maybe if I get into that hole that's been made by the insect. And actually looks like the oil's actually leaked out. So if I put it there where it's easier to see, and that possibly could be where the oil's leaked out. And what I was showing there is a hole. There we go. A perfect little circle that's been bored by some other form of insect. I'm not sure which insects actually will, or larvae will feed off a torchwood, so that's maybe something to look out for. I'm going to take this one with me. I think it's going to take a little bit more work to get it open, and we've got animals to find, so I'll try and get that prepped for the sunset safari. Put it in my box, not like the last Terminator thing that I lost. This one is now in my box. I cannot lose it. But beautiful big tree. We are also in the area where I last had Shadow's tracks. So just having another look around here, see if I can find any tracks that are slightly more fresh. So for those of you who might have tuned in a little late today, welcome on this very cold, cloudy and windy sunrise safari with not much sun to be seen at the moment. And we've had a really great start to the morning. Found the Nkahuma Pride at Buffelshoek Waterhole, and we went off and tracked Sindile, who is a young male leopard, and we are now on the hunt for his mom, whose tracks I saw in this area, and I'm hoping to find some fresh tracks of her. And for those of you who might be new, apart from being live, so you're seeing everything that we're seeing in real time, and we're also interactive, so you can ask us questions and send us information. You can do that by emailing us on questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. So even though it's been quite a miserable day in terms of weather, it's been a fantastic day in terms of cats. And I'm quite sure, well, we left that young male leopard, Sindile, fast asleep atop a termitaria, and I'm hoping he wouldn't have moved too far, and I'm hoping he'll be a little bit more active on the sunset safari. So we'll definitely be following up in that area, as I'm sure Scott will be following up on the lions later as well. It's about time we did a bit of a swap. For the last few weeks, I've been spending all my time with lions, and Scott's been spending all his time with leopard. So now my turn for some leopards, and Scott's turn for some lions. I heard Scott said you guys have to keep an eye on me, otherwise I get into trouble if I'm left alone for too long. Well, unfortunately, that's probably quite true. I do battle to sit still for too long. But generally, it's the good kind of trouble. Speaking of making sure people aren't getting into trouble, let's see what Scott's been up to. Scott. Scott. So we're gonna cross across to Scott, who is a sneaky puff adder, and I'm definitely gonna have a word with him. Just making me do all the hard work this morning, tracking on foot, and he just sneaks in behind me. Back to Sindile. So we'll see what Sindile is up to, and we'll be back with you a little later.
Well, again, big thanks to Brent for staying with Sindile while he's asleep, and we've come back at the right time because it looks like he's on the move. We're not sure what he is hunting, but there is something that's got his attention in this fallen down log. And aren't we lucky that we did come back at the right time? So thank you to Brent. Now we do just have to be a little bit patient. As I don't want to move around unnecessarily. I'm told yesterday evening he was chasing down just about anything that moved. All very useful practice for him. Stalking is an art that can be practiced on even insects. And it looks like at the moment he's seriously investigating something in that area, possibly some dwarf mongooses that may seek shelter in this fallen down log. Oh wow, look at that, he's up in the tree. He's just being playful, and isn't that awesome? Well, as we watch this young leopard attempt to hunt, Darlene from Oregon would like to know, how does their hunting behavior change over the different seasons? And now that it's very dry in the winter, it means that leopards will have less cover. There's a lot less vegetation around in the winter months, and the vegetation is also very dry and crackly, so their approach will need to be very delicate and precise to not give away their position. And you'll see now as he walks forward, he tries to put each back footprint in exactly where the front footprint stepped, and that way you'll make less noise. Their prey will become weaker in the winter months as there's less food around, so there's easier opportunities to a degree. And apologies, my monitor isn't working, so I'm not sure exactly what Wium is filming. And if my head gets in the way, apologies for that. He is also creeping right up to the front of our vehicle. So yes, Darlene, less cover in the winter months, more cover in the summer, but their prey will weaken. Look at this. Absolutely beautiful young leopard, and as I said earlier, he's probably going to at least double in size in the next couple of years. But even in the next 6 months, we could expect him to get a lot bigger. I love it when they hold their tails up high. And watch closely again as he walks now, how he registers each back pad in the place where his front paws have already stepped. I'm guessing he's trying to track down some dwarf mongooses. Look at him crouching down to the ground. He could surge forward at any moment. It's difficult to see what prey he's hunting in this vegetation, as the prey is often very small. But he's onto something here. Look at this. I think what we can do is actually just reverse around and get a little gap. Hold on a second. So that if he does pounce, we'll be able to at least see. great angle. I wonder what's up in this vegetation ahead of him. He's very poised. And look at how well his camouflage works. It would have been hard to pick him up until Wium zoomed in. There's a little fly that's bothering him. That's what he was moving his head for. And he may snap out at it. Oh, they're francolins. Awesome, Wium, if you just zoom out. On the left of the dead tree, there's some crested francolins. This could be incredible. We could see him leap up into the air after one of them. And he was hunting francolins last night. There they are. Now, the best possible scenario for him will be for him to keep still and wait for these francolin to feed towards him. There's no guarantee that they will. But if they do, we could see some incredible action here. He's got some great cover. And now he is flattening himself lower down into the grass, getting ready for them. Predators will very often get into an area where they could get lucky and then wait and hope that their prey will stumble onto them. The francolin are letting off a few little alarm calls, so they may detect that something is up. I don't think they are sure what it is yet, but you can see their body language increasing in intensity. Oh, they've smelt a rat, or a cat rather in this case. And they are now feeding away from him, and that's probably why they're making that noise. Something disturbed them. The wind is blowing in his favor, so it wouldn't be smell. Will he continue to pursue them and try and get into another position that may be favorable for him? Such pretty birds, the francolin. And these are characteristic of their very white stripe through their eye, hence their name, the crested francolin. And for some of you who've obviously missed out on the last few drives we've been having where we have seen him stalking, I'm glad this is your first time. And sadly, because this is a live safari, we cannot stop the show for anyone. You've either got to tune in or miss out. But if this is your first time, isn't it wonderful to see this animal stalking? Although now, which is no surprise, he seems to have lost complete focus on the task at hand and has fallen asleep. So we did arrive at a good moment to capture a few glimpses of him moving about. Wonderful. Well, now that the francolin have moved off, we can position ourselves a little bit closer, as we will not be interfering on his hunt, but will simply be allowing you to get some closer, better views of him. Okay, folks, well, it sounds like Brent and I have completely swapped positions this morning. So over to Brent, where I started off my morning.
Welcome back. As you can see, two can play this game. If Scott wants to sneak to Sindile, I snuck his high speed to the Nkahumas. It looks like Junior's about to have a drink, so I'm just going to try and get around to where we can have a good look at him. So it's been a feline filled, even with presenters swapping. Big cat day. So, the slightly uncomfortable weather has brought out the kitty cats, so I'm happy to deal with a bit of cold and whatnot if it produces cats like we've had this morning. Here we go. I can hear a squirrel alarm calling at behind them. It's like, lions, lions, lions. So they definitely have eaten something. Those bellies are looking quite full. From what I could see, how many we got here? 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, all 8 are here. The other 3 are lying up above this lot, up on the dam wall. There we go, there's another one. Taking the high ground. And then the other 2 are just to the right, behind those buffalo thorns, also lying up on the dam wall. And we can hear how upset the squirrel is that the lions are around. Let's just reposition slightly. I'm trying to figure out where we can get a really nice view of the Nkahumas. Just wanted to get to this spot while they were drinking, so we could be directly opposite them while they were drinking. While we move around, we're going to cross back to Scotty, who's with the other felid.
Welcome back, everyone. And he just got up again, but as he got back to us, he's laid down, but he's in a beautiful open spot. So take a closer look. And happy to hear that Brent made the most of the opportunity to rush off to the Nkuhuma Pride. The thing is, when you do leave predators, you always run the risk of missing out on action. And documentaries that are filmed often take many, many years to complete. And that's something important to remember whilst on live safaris with us. It can be tricky to make the right decisions, and who knows what may approach Buffalo's Hook waterhole in the next few minutes that could possibly get these lions to stir. Thankfully, this youngster is stirring for us for the time being. What will be his next move? Ooh, is he going to try and go up this tree? He just looked up a very thin weeping wattle, and it will be great quality entertainment if he decides to try and climb it. I wonder when he had his last meal. The last time we know for certain that they had a kill was probably 4 days ago. And possibly just chased after an insect there. I couldn't see. Oh, yeah, maybe an insect. I don't know, something small, a grasshopper. Perhaps. And it looks like he ate something there. I'm not sure if any of you managed to see what it was, but he could have caught a grasshopper. Because he definitely appeared to chew on something there. Awesome, he's attacking a tree. Look at this. Take that. This is so awesome. Wow, look at him go. Well, he certainly is in a playful mood. And that was some really, really awesome behavior to see. Thanks, Brent. Angie in Ohio has noticed his massive paws, and you would have had some great shots of them as he attacked that tree. And Angie would like to know if we think he's going to be a very big male leopard, or is he going to go for it, or is he just going to scratch his claws and attempt to sharpen them? And that's exactly what he's doing for now. Yes, Angie, I mean, he does have big paws, and he in all likelihood will become a big, big male leopard. His father is in all likelihood Tingana, who we saw yesterday, a beautiful big male. And I guess often with puppies and even small kittens, they can have big paws that they grow into. Look at how quick he is. I'm just going to try and get a little bit closer because he has moved off a bit of a distance. And we want to get a bit closer to show you any action that may further unfold here. Absolutely awesome. Isn't this a great way to be spending our safari? And you may have noticed me thanking Brent earlier. He did find this leopard earlier and we snuck in to enjoy a view. In all fairness, Brent wasn't here and didn't plan to come back. Okay, well, I wonder if he is gonna continue to perform for us. I think he may. And the lions are all fast asleep with Brent, so you're not missing out on anything there. Well, we just gotta remark through from Donna saying that she thinks he's showing off for us, and I think he's doing a great job of that indeed, Donna. He's showing us exactly how quick and powerful and dangerous he can be, taking out his aggression on that poor tree. Wasn't that awesome to see? As he gets comfortable there, it'll give us a good opportunity to recap on this morning's action. It's been such a fun safari, as they always are, but from my side we got really lucky at Buffalo's Hook Dam, stumbling upon the Inkahuma pride of lion, and I just said that we didn't expect to find anything there, and lo and behold, there was a whole pride of lion waiting for us. And this cool weather, cloudy weather and windy weather, makes for different weather conditions, which are also enjoyable. The fact that Brent managed to track down this young male leopard was a great bonus, and I thank him for that, because we've just had an incredible sighting. That was really awesome to see him playing about there and also stalking the Franklin before. Anyway, good prospects certainly for this afternoon's sunset safari. We know where Sindile is now. He could well move from here during the day, but we've got a good idea of where to come and look for him, and also the Inkahuma pride at Buffalo's Hook Dam. Anyway, a big thanks from myself, Scott, for following, and also to Wium on camera, and to Nikki, who was directing the show, and Tara lending her a hand. We're going to send you over to Brent for the last few minutes. Enjoy, and we will see you all for the sunset safari.
So, welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we're still with the Inkahumas. A lot of them have moved up onto the dam wall. We're still with one lioness who, as according to a lot of people who have been commenting, the lion's lounging on the beach, catching some rays. We are getting a little bit of sun. It is warming up. It's been quite pleasant for Jeandre and myself to sit here with the lions, also catching a bit of sun. It has been quite a chilly morning. But what a fantastic morning it's been. We've been inundated with kitty cats. So almost simultaneously as we found Sindile, Scott found the Inkahumas. So what a great way to start the sunrise safari, and it's going to be awesome that we both have cats to follow up on for the sunset safari. And as you can see, she's just enjoying a bit of the sun. We are going to do the same while we're here. But thanks again for all your questions. Thanks for tuning in. If there are any new viewers, are very welcome, and to all our regulars, always wonderful to have you here. And it's been a spectacular morning, and always a privilege and a pleasure to be able to share our passion for the African bush with you. And thank you to everyone in Final Control, and to Jeandre on the back of the vehicle with me. It's been a spectacular... Oh, and look at that. Perfect timing. We're going to go to the lion for the last little bit as she basks in the sun, or she might go for a little drink.